do because we're going to get started here. And welcome everyone to FMA's meeting today, February 25th, 2021. And we're going to get on with it. Let me just get over here. So the sign-in and extra credit sign-in form will be posted in the end of the meeting. The link will be posted in the chat. So for today's agenda, we're going to have our weekly club updates right now. And it's going to be followed by a presentation by Zion's Bancorporation. So we'll get right into it. The business case competition, this is very important right here. Check your emails as team assignments have already been sent out. So be on a lookout by your mentor. They should have sent you an email. And this is actually the Slack QR code. So if you want to sign in, just in there, it will take you to the Slack workspace and you'll be set to go. I'll give you a minute to pull out your cameras and get the QR code. If you can't get it now, you can always just ask us later for it as well. So the graduation Stoll's interest form, we're actually gonna be closing it soon. So please, if you're graduating, please make sure to fill out this interest form. Give you a second to look at the link there, just in case you need it. And that's actually all the updates we have for this week because we're gonna go right into our presentation. But before that, make sure to follow us on our social medias and turn on your post notifications so you're updated when the club has any announcements. So everyone, please welcome Zion's Bancorporation. We have Nicole and Yvonne here, and they're going to be taking it away from you.
Thank you so much, Rashab, and thank you, FMA, for having us. I'm going to take away your screen sharing and take it onto mine. My name is Nicole Wells. I am the college recruiting manager for Zion's Bancorporation. And one of my banks that I help support and I actually sit in is California Bank and Trust. So we're here today to talk to you a little bit about California Bank and Trust, who we are and what opportunities we have for those who are continuing your education or who are going to be graduating soon. With us, we also have Yvonne Lee. Yvonne works out of the San Francisco office. Yvonne, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, hope you guys can hear me okay. I've been working remote since March of last year. My primary office is in the financial district in San Francisco. I moved back to the Bay Area in 2016, and prior to that, I was in Los Angeles commercial. And I am the manager for our portfolio management and underwriting team. And we will be hosting the banker development program coming up this summer. And that's why Nicole has organized all of us to come and talk about the bank today and the program itself.
Perfect, thank you. We also have Lucas Brito here, who is in our banker development program currently. Lucas, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Hey everyone, can you guys hear me all right?
Yep.
I'm Lucas. I graduated last year, June. Been working fully remote for the past year. And I'm part of the BDP program here in LA. I'm currently going through my rotations right now. And yeah, we'll talk a little bit about it during the presentation.
Perfect. So as we start to go through this presentation, please feel free to either put questions in the chat or unmute yourself and ask questions. And then we'll also have time for questions at the end. And with that, Lucas, would you like to kick it off?
Yes, let's do it. So let's first start talking a little bit about the bank. So California Bank and Trust is a division of Zion's Bancorporation, which is a publicly traded company with $65 billion in assets. And Zion's has 8 different bank brands across the United States, including M&G Bank in Texas, Vector Bank in Colorado. And California Bank and Trust, of course, operates in California. They were created in 1998. We currently have 80 full service locations throughout California. And even though we are a division of Zion's, we have our local management team that makes the decision for a bank. We have a CEO, we have a president. And yeah, so the way I like to summarize the slide is we have the backing of a regional bank, which is Zion's, based out of Utah. But we're a bank that's focused on our community. We care about fostering relationships with customers. And as my boss likes to say, we are a big enough bank to matter and a small enough bank to care. So can I get any volunteers about what do you guys think banking is? What's your first thought when you think of a bank? What are the services it provides? Can I get any volunteers for that, please? Come on, guys, not everyone at once.
I think some people are putting in the chat. So we
Oh,
have
they are?
loans, providing credit. Has anyone been into a branch, used a debit card, gone to an ATM, talked to a teller? Nope. Everyone does their banking on their phone. So that's fine.
That's fine. That's fine. So yeah, so you guys are correct. You know, most people associate banks with, you know, retail banking, which is what we normally have, like a credit card, and we go to a branch, we have our savings account, we have our checkings account. But banks are much more than that. We provide a variety of services. Another part of banking is the commercial side, which, you know, it's lending money at a specific interest rate. And we also have more specialized services like wealth management, when someone is managing your assets and your wealth. You have currency exchange, safe deposit boxes. So just to summarize the slide, the goal of our bank is to be both a commercial bank and a community bank. We offer services of a regional sized bank. However, we also pride ourselves in offering the level of customer service you find at a community bank. Next slide, please. And this slide, we'll be talking about the different services that we provide. So we have the retail banking that I just spoke about, like checking, savings account, certificates of deposits, personal credit cards. We have consumer loans, which is mortgages, home equity line of credit, personal lines of credit, etc. We also have business loans for businesses, and they use it for a variety of reasons. Business might need a loan for purchasing equipment, for leasing equipment, for purchasing another company, acquisitions, for purchasing real estate property. And then we also have the more specialized services, which is like treasury management, how you manage your cash. You have, you know, foreign exchange, wealth management, succession planning, letters of credit, etc.
Perfect. Thank you, Lucas. Any questions about kind of general banking services? Okay, perfect. Yvonne?
Sure. So I'm actually going to focus in more on lending. And so Lucas did a great job framing California Bank and Trust and Zions overall. We are a full service bank. And I would say that our three core pillars in regards to how CBT is made up is a combination of commercial real estate, which is like your investor real estate, our core banking retail, which is comprised of the 80 branches that Lucas mentioned. You know, these are for consumers that go in and whether or not they, or business customers as well for deposits and regular banking services, and small business. And then we have C&I, commercial and industrial lending. So those are the three primary divisions and the three-legged stool of California Bank and Trust. I know you guys are part of the Finance Management Association. And so, you know, what made you interested in finance and what do you think, you know, is finance and what has led you to this? If you guys want to include in the chat while I just continue talking about lending of who thinks about lending when you think about banking. I know when I was in college many years ago, I just naturally assumed it was either investment banking or wealth management. And I didn't necessarily think about lending itself as a potential career. And so on the screen, we have different lending departments that fall within the three core pillars, right? And so I'm actually going to jump around. So I briefly mentioned core and retail banking, which is comprised of business banking and SBA lending. And so these are going to be your local true small businesses within the counties and the cities that we operate in. I would say the max level in terms of credit exposure when it comes to small business is around $2 million. And so we would have credit exposures that can range from $50,000, a couple $100,000, up to the low millions. Premier Wealth Management. This is it's an extension of high net worth individuals that may also have business or lending needs. It's a combination of consumer and wealth management smashed together, just because, as many of you all will realize, and at this up to this point maybe even realize, that when you do go to a bank, you're going to need more than just a checking account, a savings account, a credit card, or a debit card. And the same can be said for entrepreneurs and high net worth individuals. And over the span of their life and their company's lives, they will need more than just basic banking services. And that can include Premier Wealth Management. We have commercial real estate, custom home construction lending. So commercial real estate, this is going to be your investor type lending. This is not going to be you're buying a building and your company's operating out of the building, but it's for pure investment purposes, where you're leasing it out to third party tenants, when you potentially have investors. We at CBT do a fair amount of real estate lending. It's something that we've historically specialized in, just because our former CEO, he's kind of transitioning into retirement. That is his bread and butter. And in our commercial real estate world, I would say they don't really get out of bed for more than $20 million in terms of credit exposure. We have various verticals as well, and one of them is power and project lending. So we are generally industry agnostic, and what that means is, as long as it makes credit sense, we'll consider it. And there's not necessarily industries that we hone in on and not necessarily also retract from. We do have various verticals, and one of them is power project lending, where we do a fair amount of renewable energy type business. We also have global banking, which is international. And so, as you all know, we are in a very interconnected global market, and there are needs, whether or not you're exporting and your customers are outside the United States, or you're importing and maybe you have suppliers that you are importing from overseas, as raw components or even as finished goods. And so we have global banking that helps facilitate all of that. And last, we have commercial and industrial lending, and that's actually the group that I'm in. That's the group that Lucas is actually, his host family is in LA Commercial. And our bread and butter is we finance businesses. And this is going to be the next level after small business banking. And so our credit exposures would range from $5 million, and it can go up to, in our group here in San Francisco, we have relationships that go above $100 million in terms of credit exposure. The revenue size of these businesses can range from 50 million to the $1 billion range. It's comprised of privately held businesses and publicly traded companies. They can be owned by multi-generational families. They can be sponsored back if it's a private equity company that acquired a business and is now running it. So it's a broad range, and regardless of whether or not you are interested in commercial lending, commercial real estate, small business, or any of these on the screen, your primary role is to be effectively a quarterback and the face of the bank, and to help your customers facilitate whatever needs they could potentially have. So let's actually see on the chat some of the responses. Yes, plays a large role in your life. Finance is basically the gears of the economy, right? Great answers. So we also have non-lending departments. To what Amy, your response is that they play, a large role in many aspects of businesses. And so in the role of lending, we also provide other services that are natural in the needs of a business, including treasury management, like Lucas mentioned. A relatable form of treasury management that you should all know is mobile banking, right? On a consumer front, you guys are doing all your interactions online through an app. Businesses also do a lot of their interactions through an online or system-based platform that's referred to as treasury management. It's just on a larger scale. There's a lot more bells and whistles because businesses have a variety of needs beyond just transfers. Investment services, same thing. If you have a buttload of cash, you don't want it sitting there accumulating zero to no interest. And so there's investment services on the consumer side and on the business side as well, along with foreign exchange. If you have customers that are paying you in Canadian dollars or in euros, or if you need to make payments in a foreign currency, we facilitate that as well. And last is syndications, and actually that actually goes hand in hand with CNI, just because we do a fair amount of syndications. And so for you guys that may or may not know, banks are not going to take all of the risk themselves. And so when I'm talking about credit exposures and lending of $50 million or $100 million, there are businesses that go in the $1 billion credit need range. And a bank will not take that whole exposure on itself. And what ultimately ends up happening is there's one bank that is referred to as the agent bank. And the responsibility of the agent bank is to actually organize a group of banks together to make up a bank group to fill up whether it's a $500 million credit need or $200 million or $1 billion. And so we also do a fair amount in the participation in the syndication space as well, where we participate in these larger bank group type activities. And we also have a syndications desk ourselves, in the situations where we are the lead bank and we are the agent, and it is our responsibility to communicate with participant banks, to find participant banks, to underwrite the deal, and to kind of arrange that whole situation. And so these are a couple of examples of non-lending departments that is consistent not only with our organization but across pretty much all banks. Any questions so far? Okay. So what does a banker do? This is a great question because it kind of falls into the strengths of everybody, in the sense that there's the avenue of, if you're really great with people, if you love socializing, if you love wining and dining, and this is like a pre-pandemic situation where you like golfing or you like to go out to networking events and you just like that is your thing and you love connecting and you're like, I am a great matchmaker and that's my thing. Business development might be a strong suit. At the same time, if you're also highly analytical, if you love, getting your arms around industry dynamics, macroeconomic factors, financial modeling, digging into reading financial statements to understand what is going on between the numbers and not just reading the numbers themselves. This can include structuring deals, and underwriting deals. And so you kind of have the best of both worlds in terms of options in regards to career paths as a banker. Because if you're super analytical, but you don't really enjoy interacting with people and you're like, you know what, that drains me and I'm tired at the end of the day by just having to talk to somebody, I'd rather be analytical. There's a path for you. And at the same time, if you're like, I'm really not into numbers, I'm not that detailed, and I'm actually best at engaging with people, then business development might be best for you. But at the end of the day, the second row is a combination of both, right? So managing portfolio risk, fostering internal relationships. So the same amount of efforts that you put externally for your network, you're going to want to build those relationships and invest in those internally as well, whether it's executive management or credit administration. So credit administration is actually the approving party at the bank. It's called credit administration at every bank, and community involvement and structuring deals. And so within our group, within commercial banking, we do approach the role of a banker as collaborative and a team. So oftentimes on our deals, if your strong suits are business development, we'll partner you up with an analyst or a portfolio manager to make sure that the relationships are fully taken care of externally and internally. And so everything that you see on the screen is kind of it's crucial because you really are the quarterback for a relationship, but at the same time there's roles that play to everyone's individual strengths. Okay, I don't think I see any questions on the chat or anyone raising their hand.
I have a question for Lucas. So in your current position in the banker development program, working directly under a relationship manager, I'm just curious, in month 8 of the program now, do you think that you're going to go more the analytical route, credit analysts towards being a portfolio manager, or working under a relationship manager? Has that shown you that that's kind of the path that you're interested in pursuing?
That's a good question. I think for me, definitely relationship manager, because I like, building relationships with people, and I like the wine and dine and all that stuff. We actually had like a golf like tournament or charity event at CBU, which was really fun. So yeah, I think, but also the analytical side. So being able to understand everything first and then move on to relationship manager later on.
Any questions before we move forward? So Yvonne started to talk about this a little bit, our community involvement. California Bank and Trust really prides itself on being an employer that does everything off of this foundation of integrity. Being a bank where our companies are really putting so much trust into us, whether it's in an investment capacity, whether it's in giving them a loan that makes sense for them, and actually going through that deal. We really need to make sure that we are completely based in honesty and integrity within our organizations. Volunteer opportunities are also something that's very important to California Bank and Trust. Obviously, it's a little bit difficult to go out right now and volunteer with companies. But for example, just pre-COVID, I sit in our San Diego office, and we have a company that we have been working with to help finance a new building for them. They are a food bank, but they have kind of a non-traditional food bank structure where they purchase excess produce from farmers in California, produce that would normally go to waste, and just pay for the transportation for it, and then give that out at elementary schools and in different low income areas so that families can not just get canned goods, but also have fresh produce as well. So about 60 California Bank and Trust employees went out one Saturday and spent the day volunteering with the organization, helping with their day-to-day mission. We want to be there for our customers when they need us financially, but also just being able to support their missions on a day-to-day basis. We also had an event today at the Zions Bancorporation level where we had 3 former NFL players talking about their experiences with diversity, equity, and inclusion in the NFL. Each of those individuals have their own foundations now after they've retired, and the bank donated $5,000 to each of those, at the end of the event. And so these are the things that, even in this virtual environment, that have continued and that are very, very important for us. We have a couple questions here. So how difficult is it to break into the banking industry? So we will talk about the banker development program a little bit and our internships, which are one way to break into the industry. But Yvonne, Lucas, do you have any insight into kind of breaking into the industry after graduation?
You have to apply. I mean, you have to put yourself out there, right? I mean, it's the same. Look, y'all are starting from scratch, right? From graduation. So regardless if you're breaking into banking or any other industry, you have to put yourself out there. It's going to be the same approach regardless of whatever it is.
Yeah, for me, something that worked during recruiting was reaching out to people, analysts, and just in different banks, and just asking them about their experience, how they got involved. And I think that helped a lot too.
Absolutely. And I'll share this after the meeting today to be distributed. At Zions Bancorporation, we have just created a informational interview program. It's only going to have employees from our Texas and Utah banks to start out. But this program, and even if you aren't in those markets, you can still sign up to be part of the informational interview program. So what you would be able to do as a student who is interested in banking would be to fill out this intake form with up to two areas where you would be interested in banking, and actually be paired up with someone currently working for the company to kind of just give you some insight into those areas. We have a large marketing presence, which you wouldn't, you don't think of banking and think of marketing, or legal, or all of these different areas that aren't necessarily lending roles. Though there, are lending opportunities as well for those informational interviews. And so I'll share that as well. And I think that that's a really great way to at least start to get some of that exposure, to see if banking or a certain area within banking would be something that you would be interested in pursuing. We have another question. What are some ways that you guys have strengthened your relationship with clients online?
So that's a great question, but the operative word is online. So I know it's a generational thing, but relationships are just very much the same, like regardless of technology or form. You pick up the phone, and you just stay in touch. And it's not just about business, it's about making connections on a human level in terms of interests and engagement. And it's not necessarily transactional. So the way that you guys socialize on campus or with your friends, or how you've maintained those friendships, for the past year, it's the same way we maintain the relationships with our clients. You just stay in touch, right? And whether it's through Zoom calls or just picking up the phone, or when we are allowed to have outdoor coffee sessions or golf, that's what we do.
And Lucas, Yvonne, the bank has, been heavily involved in the payroll paycheck protection program. I always get those two. What is it actually? Is it payroll or paycheck?
Yeah, paycheck
Payroll
program. Isn't it?
Oh, I thought it was payroll.
Okay, glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
So, that's one of the ways that we have really, continued to help our customers and clients throughout this time. Can you either each give a story of a company that you've worked with that has been, really impacted by that program? Or Yvonne, even if there's a company that really stands out to you as, a pivotal part in or moment in your career where you were able to make that big difference in a company by building that relationship and helping them, either
Sure. I mean,
continue.
yeah. So here's the thing, is that it's been a really difficult year for everybody, right? And the thing with banking and relationships is it's easy to be there for somebody or for a business when times are good. But the true test is, are you there and can you support them when times are difficult? And that is a test of character and whether or not your banker has your back. And all of those years of being loyal to that bank, that's when it kind of pays off. So naturally, when everything shut down in March, there was a lot of uncertainty in the industry, and nobody knew how long-standing this impact would be, and nobody knew the financial impact, and it was kind of chaos. It was scary because nobody knew what was going to happen, and poor Lucas had to start his first job out of college remotely, and he didn't know what he was in for. And I would say that at the beginning of the pandemic, we triaged our portfolio in regards to like impact and anticipated impact, and we stayed on our relationships and on our customers on a monthly basis to see where they were at. And a lot of businesses maintain cash to just get them, through payroll for the next couple of months. But because there was so much uncertainty in regards to what is it going to look like 6 months from now, everybody's burning through cash. And the first round of the PPP really, came through for customers because it held them over for a couple more months. But then that's when it got actually really difficult for businesses that were severely impacted by the shutdown. Imagine movie theaters, imagine anyone in the travel industry or airplanes or retail. You burn through whatever cash reserve you have, then you get, if you're fortunate enough to get PPP immediately, in Q2 of last year. That's only what, 6-8 weeks of payroll. And then what? Then you go to your bank and you ask for deferment, and that's when it started to get kind of tricky in Q3. Is like we actually saw more of like, okay, this COVID's not going anywhere, things are not opening up, and we have businesses that are going to be impacted, not in the short term but in the long term, and some of these industries may never come back. And so we have had instances of problem where we've classified as a watch list or a problem loan. But what we've done in some of those instances is that we haven't kicked the customer out of the bank, right? We've tried our very best to modify the loans to accommodate whether it's seasonal needs or industry needs. Like COVID is kind of out of everyone's control, and it wasn't necessarily out of poor business decisions. And so we are trying to ride it through with our customers. And for the ones that we're able to do that, they are truly appreciative. And I will say that there are some that it's a long road. I mean, we were in a deal that was an aircraft lessee. So for all of you that don't know, Delta and American Airlines, Southwest, they don't actually own the planes that they operate, they lease those. And there's been absolutely little to no revenue generation, and that industry has been completely shut down. We have a couple of borrowers up here in San Francisco, that one being they do uniforms for schools, and nobody's in school. And you would imagine that that is a highly seasonal business, meaning that if you're not able to capture back to school, you're done for the rest of the year. And guess what? They weren't able to capture it last year back to school. And they are hurting through all of last year, and am hoping that things will open back up this August so that people will need uniforms again. And we are writing it through with our customers. And so it's to what I said at the beginning of this, it's like it's easy to be there when times are good, but it's the true test of character is to be there when it's difficult.
Yeah, for me, I'm actually working on the PPP team right now. I'm helping audit loan or applications and making sure they have all the documents. And if an application gets rejected by the SBA for whatever reason, look into the application and make sure that it gets approved. And I have I remember an application where it was like a very small restaurant that they had to close down because of COVID. And I think it was something like their revenue, like year over year, was down like 86% or something crazy like that. And his application initially got rejected by the SBA because it was missing some sort of document. I think it was the SUTA form, which is state wages, shows like how much state wages you paid, state tax wages you paid. And we got that approved after a lot of back and forth between me, the borrower, and the banker. It got approved, and the borrower actually, wrote like a nice email, like thanking us and saying like how that's the PPP is going to be one of the few things that's going to help him, keep being business and continue his business. So that was very nice to see, and it made me like very proud to be part of the program and to help small businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really kind of wild sometimes how much impact a bank can have on our customers. It's not the deposits that are making or breaking banks. It's for us, it's the relationships. The relationships are what make California Bank and Trust stand out. It's what makes our customers stay with us for so long. Yvonne mentioned generational businesses. We have those businesses that have stayed with us generation after generation because of those relationships. Every bank can offer loans and deposits and have branches, but when you have bankers that really, really care about the customers and are there for them in those hard times, it's what makes California Bank and Trust, we think, just such an amazing place. Thank you for both of those questions. Those were great. Any other questions before we move on to the opportunities we have? Perfect. we've mentioned, the banker development program. So Lucas is currently in the banker development program. He started last June in our Los Angeles office. And we have our next banker development program class starting in San Francisco in June. So the banker development program is a full-time training and rotation program designed to give entry-level analysts right out of school the opportunity to get a really strong foundation in credit and then do rotations through different areas of the bank. So the first 4 to 5 months of the program are all initial training. During that time, you would go through 3 sessions of what we call credit foundations. First 2 are very classroom style, learning the ins and outs of lending, loans, credit, the underwriting process, looking at financials, spreading, putting together a credit presentation. Lucas, do you want to talk about credit foundations a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it was like the first 3 or 4 months, we would have classes with people across the whole Bancorp. So, people in Arizona and Texas and Utah. And it would be classes about, taxes, spreading, financial statements, accounting, just to, build that foundation that's needed for banking. And then at the end of the program, you actually go through like a mock credit presentation where you go through the entire process of, meeting the client for the first time and asking all the necessary questions and then writing a proper credit presentation and then presenting it to like a credit committee. And yeah, after the credit foundations program, we started our rotations.
And what rotation are you in currently?
So at first I did commercial lending, and then now I was supposed to be doing ABL, but for now I'm doing PVP, and then I'll be going back to ABL probably in March.
Perfect. So once you've finished kind of that initial training phase and have gotten that foundation, you'll start your rotations. Rotations, as it mentions, are on-the-job training. Yvonne mentioned several of our lending and non-lending departments a little bit earlier. So the rotations are going to be through those lending areas, through commercial and industrial and commercial real estate, as well as some of our more specialized areas such as FMAer wealth management, which is the banking of those ultra high net worth individuals, Treasury Management, a little bit of exposure to middle office, as well as our retail banking, so that you kind of get a holistic view of what's happening at each of those areas of the bank. After that training and rotation period, you ultimately will be placed and you will preference what team you wanted to be on based on your rotations. And the 2 most likely placements will be in commercial and industrial or commercial real estate, because those are, as Yvonne mentioned, the largest areas within the San Francisco market. Yvonne also mentioned a little bit about the business development role versus the more analytical role. So placement after the training and rotation period, you can kind of stay on that credit analyst track towards being a portfolio manager, kind of more on the back end, or you can pursue being a relationship manager, which, as she mentioned, was that forward-facing business development role. So that's the banker development program. It'll start full-time in June in San Francisco. For those of you that are not graduating, we do have the class twice a year. So the January 2022 class will be in San Diego, and the June 2022 class will be in Irvine. So we kind of just rotate markets each class, but we will have the program for subsequent years. Who we're looking for the banker development program. It is a full-time opportunity, so we're looking for someone who is graduating or has graduated with their degree in finance, business, economics, accounting, at least a 3.0 GPA, who has taken managerial and financial accounting. As Lucas mentioned, you will be having some accounting coursework during that initial training phase. And so we just want to make sure that our analysts in the program are set up for success by having that foundation in accounting. And we're really just looking for people who are going to come in, who are going to not just, do what's on their plate and leave, Lucas, when he started, had no idea that PPP was going to be on his plate. But we've had most of our banker development program classes for the past year step in and help with the PPP because it's been a bank need. Lucas, I'm sure it's been something that you've appreciated getting to learn more and to see that process. It's also a great exposure with the bankers you're working with, the clients you're working with. And that's really the biggest part of this program is that exposure to the areas, to the customers, to the divisions. So we're looking for someone who's going to come in, who's going to take the opportunity to learn and take in as much as they can so that when you get permanently placed, you can just hit the ground running in that area. Any questions about the banker development program? Or anything to add, Lucas or Yvonne?
I have a question.
Sure.
So I'm actually going to be graduating in December 2021. Would
Okay.
I be able to apply for the January one in San Diego or?
Yeah, so we'll be recruiting for that in fall. But what I'll do, my email is on the last slide here, and I would love for you to send me an email just with kind of, what you're interested in when you're graduating so that we can stay in touch once that does open for fall.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. And for those that are not graduating now or soon, we will have internships for this upcoming summer. Our internships are going to be posted either late tomorrow or at the beginning of next week. Our internships this summer are going to be a little different than a traditional internship where, normal internships, you'll be on a team, it's kind of project-based. This internship is going to be more of a rotational internship as well. So it'll be an 8-week internship, all virtual, but we do prefer candidates to be somewhere near a branch because there will be some branch exposure as well as part of the last week of the program. So the first week, it's very, getting you up to speed. Weeks 2 through 7 are going to be rotations through commercial finance and then power finance, as Yvonne talked about earlier, as a specialized area within our business. And then the last week, you'll have a day or two in a branch and then work on a final presentation. There also will be a lot of executive sessions. And really our idea for this internship is to give those that are going through school an understanding of what and who CB&T is. So the program will likely be for those that are either graduating in December or next June. And, we're hoping to kind of have those same qualifications as the banker development program, a 3.0 degree in finance, accounting, business, and really just kind of give that exposure to students who otherwise, would have very little, if any, exposure to commercial banking unless you owned a business. We also have
there's a couple of questions in the chat, Nicole.
Yep. So Christian asked, how important are extracurricular activities for California Bank and Trust? So I think that on the recruiting side of things, if I see a resume that has no extracurricular activities, no internships, anything like that, that's kind of a red flag. I think we are really looking for well-rounded students to join the bank. And so, if you don't have a 4.0, but you've been involved in other activities, I think that's much more beneficial for student development as well as the things that we look for. We are very community oriented. We want people who are going to be engaged in the bank, in the community, in our business resource groups that we have. So we have a women in banking business resource group, and African Americans in banking, and Asian Pacific Islanders in banking, a Pride at CBT, as well as an emerging leaders business resource group. So, we're looking for people who want to be involved. And if you haven't been involved at all in your undergrad, it's likely that will stay, if that makes sense. That being said, don't feel like you need to fill up your resume with every extracurricular that is available at San Jose State. Obviously you are all part of FMAer right now. And if you're in an organization for a few years and, go towards having a leadership role, I think that's great as well. You don't have to be involved in everything, but I think, I would rather see someone involved in something for many years than have, you involved in 8 different clubs for 6 months each. For question from Danny, for analysts in the structuring deals department, will the CFA be mandated, or will the training and rotation program sufficiently prepare us for the role? So for the banker development program, we absolutely do not require the CFA. I know it's a large undertaking, and it's not required for the program. Yvonne, do you want to add anything to that?
No, CFA is definitely not required. And I will say, if you are interested in a CFA, commercial banking probably isn't for you. That's just my blunt answer, and that's kind of how I am. You don't need it. You'll get sufficient training. I am a huge proponent of hands-on learning. Here's the thing: people learn differently. Some people react better with theory-based learning, and others only work best with hands-on learning and trial and error. We will provide all of the options humanly available for individuals to learn in the best way that it can be received and to also succeed. I would say, because I've been kind of doing this for a good amount of time, and I myself started off in banking as a credit trainee, it takes at least a year to start understanding company culture and to start seeing what you're actually doing. And the benefits of the BDP program is that you get exposed to other departments, but at the same time that, it's going to, you have to be patient with yourself in regards to when things start to click, in terms of your contributions and what you want to do with your career path. It is very common, and this happens all the time, for individuals to say, I think I'm more analytical. I want to be an analyst and I want to be a portfolio manager. And then they realize, they actually have a knack and the gift of gab, and that they can do business development, and vice versa, where individuals say that they're interested in being a relationship manager, and they realize, okay, that's really stressful. And it turns out I'm really great with, underwriting or something. And so it's not like you are dead set on a career path either. We are very fluid, we are very flexible, and we try our very best to be accommodating, just because everyone has different journeys that they go on. I got a direct question I think I want to throw out there, because I think this is also important. What makes you guys stay at Zion/CBT? How do analysts in banking set and track their goals? And I think this is important because, regardless if this is Zion's or CBT, my recommendation for all of you that are graduating, you want to find a place that fits you. And that's why I stay and have stayed at CBT. And it's not because of the organization. It's a fabulous organization. I love the bank, but I stay because of the people, right? And this isn't my first bank. I started in banking somewhere else, but it comes down to culture and it comes down to people. And you want to find a place and a unit, like regardless of whatever, entry level career you start at, you want to be around people that you click with, and it's comfortable, that you can be yourself, and that you are surrounded by people that will support you. And whether it's sponsorship or formal or informal mentorship, they will have your back and they will give you advice from a place where it's for your best interest and not any ulterior motivations. And I will say that in my career leading up to this point, a lot of my values that I've gained haven't been from formalized mentors, and it hasn't been from my boss. It's been from my peers and my colleagues and people in other departments. And you gather those experiences with you. And so that's what keeps me here. In terms of track record, we don't want people to be complacent. We don't want you to be a BDP associate and a credit trainee for the rest of your life. I mean, if you want to do that, that's actually okay too. But we want to promote growth and we want to provide opportunities. And, prior to the BDP program, our group here in San Francisco, we've always hosted an intern program. And I've always recruited back former interns just because you get an idea of how they operate. And I've really kind of pushed them into the pool to see if they can sink or swim, because our internships are like a crash course on commercial banking. And they've all come back successfully in completing credit foundations, and are full-fledged credit analysts, on track to either being a relationship manager or a portfolio manager. I started off at CBT in the group that Lucas is in Los Angeles Commercial in 2016, and I joined as a credit analyst. I'm not from Los Angeles. I just stayed in Los Angeles because it's fun. That's just the honest truth. So I was like, okay, why not? I grew up in the Bay Area. I grew up in San Jose, actually. And so my family's up here, and it was just quite honestly a matter of time before I moved back into the Bay Area. And just to speak to the kind of organization that we are, I transferred internally from one commercial unit to another, and it was seamless. And it was like, okay, Yvonne, you've been with us for a couple of years. We know what it's like. And, I know you're making this move for personal reasons, and the bank supported me with that. And when I had moved up here, I was a portfolio manager, and I ended up managing the underwriting team. And I have continued on my career path since then. And come 2022, next year will be my 10th year at the bank, and I am currently a senior vice president. And I started off at the bank as an analyst. And that's also one of the great things about CBT, is that we see you. We do not compartmentalize responsibilities, where you get to actually see the process A to Z. And for me as a manager, that is critical, because these are skills that you learn. Yes, sometimes they may be difficult and painful and not fun if you're working with a back office or whatever, but it's consistent in commercial banking, that the way that we operate is consistent at any other commercial bank. And these are skills that you take with you, that if you want an honest career in commercial banking, is a skill set that you should have, and that will make you stand apart. And so it's very critical that we show you everything from A to Z, and provide that growth and that opportunity, and that you're not just a cog in the wheel. And Lucas probably knows that. You are involved in credit committee, right? The president of the bank knows your name. And when there's a deal that comes across the desk in terms of credit approval, they know who the underwriter is. And that's one of the benefits of the size that we have, is that you have almost more flexibility to grow and to stand out. And my mentality has always been, you don't need to stay in a position for X amount of months or X amount of years in order to get to the next level. If you want to be crazy and work crazy and hustle, then you can. It's not like, Lucas, you need to be an analyst for 3 years or 4 years before you can start developing business. No, go out there and go network. Like, it's completely okay. And that's the kind of organization we are, is that we try to facilitate growth based on what your ambitions are. If you're super ambitious, by all means, do some all-nighters if we have prospects and that we need to crank those deals out and meet those deadlines. But if you also want to, pace yourself as well to make sure that you're diligent, we facilitate that as well. So our career path is really what you make of it.
Lucas, I'm curious from your perspective. So funny anecdote. The last time I was in the office was actually when we were interviewing Lucas and his banker development program.
Yeah.
That was the last day I was in the office. So Lucas, what made you choose California Banking Trust?
Wow, that's a good question. So I've always wanted to be in finance, because growing up, I lived in different countries, and I've always been interested in like different currencies and how different economies work. And so I've always wanted to be in finance, but I never knew what I wanted to do in finance. I never knew that. And so when I found CB&T and the BDP program that gave me an opportunity to go through all these different areas of the bank, I was like, that's perfect, because, you know, it'll give me like an idea of how a bank works. It'll give me all these different departments. And besides that, it's, you know, like we said, it's a bank that, you know, has the backing of a regional bank. It cares about the local community. So I just became very interested in it, and I applied. And yeah. And going and adding to what she said about the president knows the name, that's actually true, because with the BDP program, we had a Zoom call or a Teams call with the president, the CEO. We had a Teams call with all the managers of the departments. And yeah, it's a place where if you put in the work, you'll get noticed. And I can say that's very true.
Yeah, even in this virtual environment, we had a class that started in our Irvine office in January, and week one, we had the CEO on for an hour. This is in the midst of PPP. You know, he's very busy doing all kinds of things, but knows how valuable the banker development program participants are to the bank. So he took an hour out of his day to sit down and just let them ask him questions, you know, how he got to his point in his career. He's kind of the ultimate story of growth within the bank. He started as a temp stuffing envelopes in the accounts payable department and is now the CEO of the bank. So if that says anything about, you know, how we promote our employees, you know, he worked hard and made a name for himself and continued to grow up and through the ranks and is now running the bank. So it definitely is something at the core of our values, is that internal growth, is providing those opportunities for our employees. And the Banker Development Program really is growing the next generation of leaders for our organization, to give them the foundation to be a portfolio manager or a relationship manager, but also the networking to really help them kind of jumpstart their career within the bank. So thank you for those questions. It looks like, Anna, for people who want to apply to this internship, what their schedule will look like. So it'll be an 8-week full-time internship. So it will all be virtual, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you feel about Microsoft Teams. But the first week of the internship really just will be kind of some trainings. We have a system called iAchieve that you'll have to do some compliance trainings, and that's kind of when you'll start that networking. During the rotations, they're going to be kind of exposure based. So learning what that team does, learning what kind of deals they're doing, meeting the teams, having those executive sessions, and really kind of just getting an understanding of what's going on within those areas day to day, and within the bank. So the schedule will be full-time Monday through Friday for those 8 weeks of the internship. And as I mentioned, it will be posted either late tomorrow or will be posted by Monday morning on our career site.
I have a question for all of the attendees. What is most important for you in regards to your first job out of college? Is it visibility? Is it pay? Is it any job that will accept me? What's important to you?
Well, I can personally say that not only would it be the pay, it would have to be the right price, because, you know, everyone's time is valuable and so is your knowledge, but probably the environment, and just when you get to work in the environment, like I said, how they make you feel. If you're learning, are you going to want to continue learning at that place of employment?
Absolutely, and we have some more in the chat: growth potential, career growth, career development. Another kind of aspect of career development at California Bank and Trust, we have an entire learning and development team that offers trainings, as well as just an online currently online suite of trainings. And so we really encourage our employees, if there's something that you want to learn that can't be necessarily learned in your area, or if you want to get, additional exposure, we can partner with our learning and development team to get those set up. And we really encourage our employees, if they want to learn more and to find, to learn a new skill, that we can help them do that. So we have gaining experience, company culture, people, exposure to different parts of the company, and company commitment to social responsibility. Yeah, so those are all really great. Yvonne, do you want to follow up on some of those? Oh,
Sure.
Ownership and impact in the community. We do have a 401k match, which can automatically go into Zion stock, but you can change that as well for ownership of the company.
I think with like Gen Z, Gen Y, impact is common in regards to, I want to do something that makes a difference, and not just within the company, but I also want to be at a company that makes a difference. And so I see that one a lot. Yeah.
And then it looks like we have a question. Will the internship be fast-paced? So I think it's going to depend on the area and the rotation that you're on. I wouldn't describe it as and this is kind of commercial banking versus retail banking. It's going to vary day to day. It's not going to be a crazy internship where you're going to have all of these deadlines and tons of projects, but we're not going to have you sitting there and twiddling your thumbs either. So I think with this virtual environment, a lot of it is you'll obviously have the things on your plate, but we'll give you the tools to do more outreach if you want to make additional connections, to do additional trainings if you want to learn more skills, to work with our learning and development team. And so I think it can be fast-paced if you want to fill up your time with constant work, but that doesn't have to be the experience of the internship if you want kind of more of that just exposure-based networking kind of internship. Someone also asked about the facilities business and financial analyst position. I don't believe that is an entry-level position. I think it requires 6 years of experience, if I remember correctly. That being said, some of our facilities roles are more entry-level. I'm pretty sure that one is not currently. Thank you for all those questions. Any other questions that we can answer for you? I really appreciate, one, you having us, and two, all of your questions and engagement. Any other questions before we let you go for the evening? No? Okay, well, for those that are interested in the Banker Development Program, I'm going to put the link in the chat right now for that position. We will be